Ever ask yourself what's next? Maybe the kids are grown, they need you less. You hit an age where you're reflecting on what you've done, what you put on hold, maybe even what you missed out on. I know I did. So I set out to find a way to ensure my life is both full and fulfilling. The world has most definitely changed. If you are a Gen X like me, then we're, in my opinion, probably the first generation for whom official retirement is as long as your working life. And obviously you can decide whether you're going to retire or not. But, in traditional sense of you work so long, you retire at 65. And then, most people previously, if they retired at 65, didn't tend to live much longer beyond that. Nowadays, of course, we're in a situation where, one, from an official point of view, the retirement age has been pushed back anyway. But secondly, the actual amount of time you may live after retirement is extended significantly. So living to 80s, 90s, 100 isn't uncommon anymore. And so we are, in my opinion, the first generation for whom retirement could easily be as long as your working career. During my time, and this obviously goes for anyone before Gen X as well, like we've gone from records to cassettes to CDs to MP4 to now you just stream it online. That's a lot of change in a very short period of time. And that's obviously brought with it the need to adapt, the need to learn new technologies, and also new opportunities, which has been great. Because we have gone from everybody commutes to go to an office to work to a situation where, we have arguments about whether somebody's going to work from home all the time or whether they're going to come into the office at all or once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. So we now got this kind of whole commute setup, which is great. Again, creates new opportunities. So questions though, if you are over 50 and in a situation where perhaps your children are either grown up and have left the nest or maybe one of them has grown up and left the nest and you got a couple of others who are a couple of years away from doing that, like I am, then things are about to change. And you kind of being over 50, I think gives you an opportunity to kind of say, and most people do go, what's life about? Because you're in a situation where statistically you may have slightly less years ahead of you than you have behind you. So you're kind of on that other side of that divide. So questions then are, how easy is it to procrastinate? How easy is it to waste time? How easy is it to wander through the day aimlessly with all the distractions that we got, especially the internet? And particularly if you're over 45, 50, how quickly did the last 15 years go by? And how quickly do you think the next 15 years will go by? And so therefore the real question is, how do you want your life to unfold over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And then what are the chances of that happening by accident? So you've got a combination of opportunity through technology. You've got looking at in terms of we're going to live longer, so we want to live better. And then, of course, the chances of all of these things falling into place and the stars aligning with you doing nothing, slim to none. So if you want things to change, you've got to make a decision to change them. I found this great quote from Katrina Fake, who was the entrepreneur behind Flickr, if you remember Flickr. So often people are working hard at the wrong thing. Working on the right thing is probably more important than working hard, which I think is obviously very true. It's like, but what is the right thing? How do you know what the right thing is? So from my perspective, knowing what the right thing is means you got to know what the end game is. So if you know where you're headed, then it's easy on a day-by-day basis to evaluate if what you're doing is moving you closer to that end game or isn't. But if you don't have an end game in mind, any decision will do, because it's that kind of thing of, you get in a ship, if you don't know where you're actually headed, it doesn't matter where you go. You're just all over the place. So you've got to decide what the end game is going to be. So where do you start then? And that's where we get into the journal aspect of it, with a vision. You need to decide what that vision is. Now, a vision is basically an idea or a picture, a very clear picture, some detail on it of how you want your life to unfold, how you would like to be living it. So I put here a vision of what, though, because I think most people have got an idea of what a vision is. If you've read Proverbs, and obviously, without a vision, the people perish, all that kind of stuff. So a vision of what, though? Is it a vision which is just purely the kind of material aspects you want in your life, the cars, the homes, the money? And I've done all that. And I've met plenty of people who've done all of that. But that's not the whole story. Maybe that's part of it, could be an important part of it, but it's not the whole story. But plenty of people have achieved those things, as in they've set out to achieve the big house, the big car, the big bank balance. And then when they've got there, they've been like, is that all there is? It's not in itself. In itself, striving to achieve it is exciting. Achieving it is elating for a very, very short period of time. And you know that if you achieved anything in your life of significance that falls into this category, then you probably had a similar experience where it's like, wow, that was great. So that can't be it. That can't be all there is to a vision, because it's not inspiring, it's not fulfilling. So what kind of vision do you really need? Now, years ago, when I first started out on this path of personal development, I got very interested in neuro-linguistic programming. Out of that came this concept of behavioral modeling. And modeling then meant for me, like, oh, great, I want to start a business. I should go talk to people who've successfully grown businesses. So I did. So I started reaching out and asking successful entrepreneurs how they'd achieved the success they'd achieved. Where I could, I took them out for dinner so I could actually, sit and chat. And over dinner, of course, people's you build more rapport, you build more trust. People's sort of natural guards start to dissolve and they start answering your questions from a real place rather than from a flippant place. Now, very quickly, though, I refined who I wanted answers from, because not everybody that I met who'd been successful was happy with it. And that's where, there was the pattern of, well, they'd achieved a certain level, but what were they doing with it? Or they'd achieved a certain level and kind of got into a pattern of, this is what I do. So all they were doing was more deals, bigger deals, more businesses, bigger businesses. And then, of course, 50 years go by and they're in their 70s and they're going, oh, what did I miss out on? So I kind of changed my definition of who I wanted to learn from. I wanted to learn from people who'd achieved something significant, created a great business, but also had not neglected other aspects of their life as well. So I distilled down what I discovered from that into 3 steps. For myself, originally, I want to share these with you. So step 1. So 3 steps to creating a great vision. So this is where you're going to need a journal, start writing, and you need to spend some time. But I would suggest you write this question down. So step 1, what do you definitely not want in your life? Now, why would you start a vision by defining what you don't want? Because most people find it easier to tell me what they don't want than to tell me what they do want. And I suspect the reason for that is, if I ask you what you want straight away, then there's a potential mistake where people unconsciously start to think about not just what they want, but how they're going to achieve it. And because they may not immediately understand how they're going to achieve it, then rather than saying what they want, they kind of come back with this kind of confused look and they kind of just go with the whole, I don't know. But if I ask you what you don't want, how you're going to achieve it is an irrelevant question. So you're able to more clearly say, these are the things I don't want. But I also think it's important to understand what you don't want. Like the number of people that I've met several who started out with excitement and built a business and then built a kind of business that they didn't really want. They built a business they didn't enjoy being in. They enjoyed the success of it in terms of the money that it generated, but the actual business itself day to day was just mind-numbingly excruciating at times for some of these people. So it's important to kind of think early on, what is it you don't want? So start there because it's easier. What are the things you don't want? So what sort of things don't you want? Like you may not want to be away from your family a lot. So for example, when I was doing a lot of speaking and I was on a plane and I was all over the world, I was away from home a lot. Now that gets very, very dull very quickly because I didn't want to be away from my family that much. So that might be part of it. So think about the things you don't want. Like what frustrates you. So what currently frustrates you in your life would be a good starting place, because the things that frustrate you now are probably things you don't want. And so think about all aspects of your life. Don't just narrow this down to business or career, because you are obviously at the center of all of it. You cannot separate yourself from the other aspects of your life. And certainly if you are in the over 50 category, then some of the things you might not want is ill health. So you might want to, so you may think, okay, look, what don't I want? I don't want my body to decline too quickly. I don't want to be in a situation where I can't enjoy my life because I physically cannot enjoy it. I cannot do the things I want to do. So that might be part of it. And I mentioned this before, but what currently frustrates you? So write down the things that really frustrate you at the moment that you really don't want and you'd like to eliminate if you could. So do that. So take the time to do this. This is important. Whether you spend 5 minutes on it, it's a good start. Whether you spend a whole day on this, even better start. Or whether you kind of like me, you write things down and you come back to it a few days later, or you jump, then you spend a bit more time on it when your brain has had time to kind of really percolate and think about it, that whole incubation period. So do that as well. So take the time to do this. Then once you've done that, now step 2, what do you definitely want in your life? Now, first of all, the first place to start is to flip all the don't want. So it's easy to begin there. So you kind of look at it, you go, okay, these are things I don't want if I flip them. So if I said, well, I don't want to be in ill health, so what do I want? Flip that. Well, I want to be in great health. I want to have great energy. And then, of course, I want to look good as well. And I want to have great muscle mass. because I've been reading. I know that, muscle itself is a glucose sink. Your muscle contributes to your immune system. So I want to have good muscle mass. I mean, I'm personally, I'm into my karate. So having muscle mass means I can continue practicing karate later in life. So flip the don't wants to begin with and then start adding to it. What else do you want? So again, think of all aspects of your life. You cannot neglect your way to success. So what happens if you neglect an area of your life? And I put some examples here just to get you thinking along these lines. Being rich and sick, is that really what you want? No. Rich and divorced, is that what you want? Probably not. Great body and soul, but no one to share it with. I've met a number of people who were in the very rarefied stratosphere in terms of business and entrepreneurial success. But because of their dedication to that, and maybe that's what it took to get there, they haven't been able to maintain relationships on a personal level for very long. So again, great body, great soul, great business, but nobody to share it with. So you can't neglect your way. You got to think about all of the aspects of your life because they're all tied together. I mean, I know for me, it's very much been about, because there was a question that came up on somebody's post a few weeks ago about being a speaker. And I responded saying, I didn't set out to be a speaker. I set out to be a rebel. And what did that mean for me? It meant I wanted the freedom. I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be fulfilled. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to make an impact on other people's lives. So that might be one of the things you want. So again, write down all these things. So neglect nothing. You can't separate you. It's not about life balance. It's about life integration. Like real integration creates success and fulfillment. I'm not an advocate of this. Well, you go to work, you work hard, then you come home and you do nothing. That's not balance to me. Balance is, am I fulfilling every aspect of my life? Am I being, if you like, the best version of me that I could possibly be? Like I want to ultimately, when I get to the end of my life and look back over it, I want to go, look, I lived it. I did all the things I wanted to do. I did not neglect any aspect of it. So I'm currently reading Ryan Holiday's new book, Discipline is Destiny. And there's a chapter I just read this morning which talks about, being harder on yourself than you are on anybody else. And I certainly am. Like I have certain standards for myself and I deliberately set standards for myself. So this week, for example, I'm inspired by my sons actually, because they're very much into their weightlifting and such like. So they're either bulking or they're cutting and they weigh their food because they want to know exactly how many calories, or at least a good approximation of how many calories they're taking in on a daily basis. Because if they're bulking, they want to make sure they're taking on enough calories. And if they're cutting, they want to make sure they're not taking too many calories. But I've taken that on board and kind of created a standard for myself into, okay, I'd like to lose a bit of weight around my waist. I'm in great shape. I can do my karate. I can do all sorts of things. I feel good, but I think my waistline's got a little bit bigger than it needs to be. So I'd like to lose some. So to do that, therefore, I need to cut back and make sure I'm in a deficit daily. So I've kind of set myself, okay, 1,800 calories a day, that's your lot. So I've started weighing my food. So I'm harder on me than I'm harder on everyone else. Do I expect everybody else to live by my standard? Of course not. But this is about my life, my standards, and what I want to do. So again, this is for you, your vision, your life, your standards. What do you want to do? So you're at the center of your empire. It's all holistic. Every area feeds off each other, without a doubt. Mind, money, heart, body, they all feed together and they're all necessary for you to be fulfilled and happy. So which bases do you need to cover? I kind of put a few things here. Fitness, obviously. So think about fitness. Health ties in with that. Think about your finances. If you're currently employed, you want to start some sort of side business. Like, if you're employed and you looked at your current pension and went, I can't live on that, then you might be thinking, okay, I need to build some other assets that put money in there. So you might need to create some sort of lifetime money machine. And obviously we've got the opportunity to do that with the internet and so on to kind of top that all up. Family. How much time do you want to spend with your family? Statistic I read, and I've probably repeated this before, but by the time your children are 18, 80% of the time you will spend with them is already gone because they've got their own lives. But in order to ensure that you still have a great relationship with your children and you still get great experiences, because life's about experiences ultimately, then you might want to make sure that in your vision you say, okay, I want to include relevant time with my family. All of them, wherever they are. Like if I can agree with my children, even as they get older, that, once a year, twice a year, we all get together and spend a great weekend together in some city around the world or some place around the world, or take a holiday together every so often or somewhere around the world. So with their families, like they get married, as they have children, all of that. So family, friends, same idea, particularly as a male. As you get older, you tend to have less and less friends because we don't take the time to reach out. So part of your vision might be, I want to have a close group of friends that I can enjoy my life with. And I certainly do notice there's a difference between male friends and female friends in terms of the things we talk about, the experiences we have. Like it's different. It's just different. So like, I like having a small group of male friends that I can hang out with at times. I like hanging out with male and female together at parties. And, there are times obviously when I just hang out with my wife. So friends, family, tie all that together. Fun. They're a great phrase. If you've got nothing to look forward to, create something to look forward to. So where you're going to have fun in your life, what creates fun for you? What are the fun aspects you want to have? And again, this all goes onto your vision. And then ultimately, all of that should lead to fulfillment, which you may or may not. But the fulfillment aspect then ties into this. What is your ideal day? This is a third part of the great vision, because the peak events, like achieving, making a certain amount of money, or buying a car, or buying a house, whatever, all of those things, those tend to be peak events. They're not something you do every single day, but you're going to have many more single days, typical days, than you are peak events, always. So your life's made up of days, peak moments versus typical days. So peak moments, I don't know, maybe you've never been to Canada, so you decide, okay, I'm going to go to Canada. You go to Canada, great, you tick it off, you had a fantastic time. But again, that's not a typical day. So on a typical day, how do you want to feel? I want to be inspired. I want to be fulfilled. I want to be excited. I want to be joyed. So how do you want your day to be? So design the day. Who do you spend the day with? Where do you spend the day? What do you do in that day? When do you do certain things in that day? Like, for example, from a business point of view, it's like, I want to be done by noon. And like, the people that I interact with in my business, I want them to be people that I enjoy talking to. As I build, if you've got a team, if you need to build a team for your business, build a team of people you want to hang out with, for example. So who, where, what, when. This can tie in with routines, like morning routines. Do you have a current morning routine that helps you be fulfilled? Do you want to include that? You want to be able to wake up and go to the gym? Do you want to be able to wake up and go to your home gym? Do you want to be able to get up a bit earlier, go to your home gym? So morning routines, evening routines, must-haves. What are the must-haves in your ideal day? What are the things that make it an ideal day? What are the things that are nice to haves? And then out of that, what's going to give you variety? If every day is exactly the same, it will get boring. That kind of certainty, that monotony will get boring eventually. So how do you build variety into that? And so I took this slight further. I call this step 3A. What's your ideal week? Because there's a typical day. And then, for example, I wouldn't necessarily have a date night with my wife every single day of the week, but I might once a week. So it's like, tie that in with what's your ideal week as well. So this all requires thought. This all requires kind of sitting down with your journal, asking yourself the questions, the 3 questions or the 3A questions I've given you, and then playing with this and coming back to it and looking at it and playing with it again until you've kind of got something which is, okay, this is where I'm headed. This is what I want to accomplish over the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. And then we can start breaking that down into a 90-day map. So if you want to transform your destiny, you need to define your destination. That's the whole point of having a vision in the first place. And of course, once you've got your vision, now you've got a gap. Because where you are and where you want to be, 2 different things. There's a gap between them. How do you close the gap? Then I'll leave a link to a training on that on the journaling habit below. You can go check that out, which will show you all the things you need to include to develop a strategy and so on that allows you to close the gap between where you are and the vision that you want to live. All right.